Hey, what's going on, my good fellas? It's Six Past Dunga back again with another video. We just uploaded the chapter 27 review on the channel. If you haven't already checked it out, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best reviews I've made up to date. But as it pertains to chapter 27, I feel like it's one of the best when it comes to giving us new narratives, future plot points in the story like Boruto and Kawaki's new power-ups, and much more. Of course, we're going to go over every single one before the next chapter drops, especially when it comes to our two main characters. So if you want to see those videos, be sure to subscribe and turn on them post notifications. Before we get into the video though, I want to inform those that don't know, YouTube has a new thing where you can hype the video on your mobile device. Near the comment section, swipe over and you should see the section where you can hype the video. It actually greatly benefits the channel. It tells YouTube that people enjoy the content and to push it out to more viewers. If you guys could drop a quick hype on the video, I'd greatly appreciate it as always. But anyway, that's it. Let's get into the video. I want to talk about a topic that got me really excited, especially when I was on stream. This really intrigued me because it really emphasizes the impact of certain role characters in the story. Something that the Boruto manga is starting to do even better than the Naruto series. Shout out to one of my supporters for bringing this topic up on stream. Even though Boruto has less side characters than Shippuden and even OG Naruto, the side characters still have the same, if not slightly more impact on the result of the story. The Konoha 12 in Naruto consisted of multiple characters, including multiple teams. Team 7, Team 8, Team 10, and Team Guy. And only a handful of these characters really played a heavy impact in the story, with the exception of Team 7 of course. Like, we can look at Team Guy for an example. Lee, Neji, and Tenten. When people look at these characters, most often the topic of missed potential pops up when talking about them, especially in Lee's case. And even then, none of these characters really had a lasting impression in the story. I mean, I guess you could say Neji for saving Naruto and Hinata, but I digress. This is what I mean. It's definitely the same with Team 8. Kiba, Hinata, and Shino. The most noticeable team out the bunch of the side characters will always be Team 10. That's when we get into the real impactful characters like Shikamaru. You can even say Ino because of her communication abilities and how she used it in the 4th Great Shinobi War. So in Boruto, it looks like some members of Team 10 is already starting to have an even bigger impact due to the current circumstances and the stakes that these circumstances present. We look at Inojin, Ino Inside Son. He currently has one of the biggest roles for the future of the story. So just to give you a bit of context, at first, Inojin was recruited by Kashin Koji in order to create a new way to communicate with Shikamaru. Mind transmission is the best way to communicate with each other because there's no physical talking involved, which eliminates the chance for someone to eavesdrop or happen to just hear information that they shouldn't have heard. It also allows communication from faraway distances. It was stated that Inojin could use this ability 100 kilometers around the village. That's 62 miles from the village where her technique can reach. So you don't exactly have to be in a village for her technique to reach. So that decreases the chances of being found out if it was discovered that they were using this technique to converse with a person that's not in Konoha. And lastly, I feel like this is most important, you can talk to more people at once, kind of like a conference call. So you can relay information to each other all at once. Perfect for these type of operations. Shikamaru previously asked Ino to be the mediator for this method of communication, but you can tell from the start she was never really okay with doing this. Because she's the head of the sensory unit, breaking rules like she was doing sets a bad example and heavily goes against her morals. She also was really left out the loop of what was really going on around Konoha, so that's another factor in her deciding to stop assisting Shikamaru. So this is where Inojin had to come in. They had to find a substitute for Ino because the loss of this form of communication was just too invaluable to overlook. So Inojin became a prime candidate to take that place. Although there are more people who can perform this technique in the village, having Inojin do it was a no-brainer because it would be easier for them to convince him to join, and he has the most potential value in his abilities and future abilities, as well as his actual experience fighting against the Shinju. So when Koji recruited him, he used Himawari as a way to convince him, stating that if he wants to protect her, the girl he has a crush on, then he should help them. And not only that, like I said, he has a better understanding of Jura's power than most, so he knows what must be done to eliminate a threat of that magnitude. but it was mostly just wanting to protect Himawari. He wants to be able to finally do something, because last time they encountered Jura, Inojin was basically almost killed. So it's like Koji offering up a new opportunity for him to not only help save his village, but also his friends and family. So it was this reason why Inojin helped Koji reconnect with Shikamaru, and you can see this affected the future greatly, because it gives Koji a way to connect with everyone and give them advice to help them in their current situation. Like Shikamaru, he currently faces impeachment from the Hokage position, so Koji, using his prescience ability, planned to give him advice to avoid that outcome. So obviously if he doesn't have this, then Shikamaru could very well get fired and lose his political power, which would be terrible for the future. And I can't fail to mention that Koji just told and explained to everyone what Mamushi's ability is. Shikamaru hearing this is the most important because, like I said, he's the Hokage. He can relay this information he got from Koji to everyone in the village with the cooperation of the sensory unit. Nobody else in the village can do what he does. This way there's no need to connect with everyone, just the Hokage. Inojin is now the mediator behind this communication, which now directly affects the outcome of the future. And from his knowledge on certain events in the future, mixed with his cooperation from the shadows, he qualifies to become a singularity of fate, just like Ada, Boruto, Shikamaru, and Kashin Koji. So in this conversation where Koji explained Mamushi's ability, he told Inojin that he planned for him to master a new jutsu, stating that the jutsu he's going to learn will be key in the upcoming battle against Mamushi. He then goes on to say that the jutsu is a superior version of mind transmission jutsu. This jutsu was the reason why they invited him here. He plays a huge role in keeping Ada safe. He also tells us the origins behind this ability, stating that he first learned it in another timeline to avenge Himawari. So this ability stemmed from a future where Himawari is either killed or devoured, but the current context of the story kinda insinuates that she was killed by Mamushi, who she probably ran into in Konoha. And I say this because look at one of Koji's visions he got in chapter 23. At first, I didn't know what had her looking this intense. It could have been anything, to be honest. But now I realize it has to be Mamushi or a Mamushi clone. That's the only explanation, and it makes sense. I don't think it's Jura, and even if it is, I'm pretty sure he's not going to fight, strictly because he's against fighting in Konoha. He holds Konoha's cultural value in high esteem. And Koji stated multiple times that Boruto and Himawari are safe as long as they remain in Konoha. So it has to be Mamushi that Himawari is locked in with. So that really confirms a Himawari versus Mamushi showdown sooner or later. It could be as soon as next chapter. In fact, I'm banking on that. And of course you'll be getting a video on that sooner or later this month as well. But anyway, this is where the bad future that Koji speaks of stems from. In multiple timelines, the end result is different. Of course, in the original timeline, this is where Himawari will probably be killed. But this new ability that Inojin is about to learn will change that future to a more favorable outcome. So now we gotta figure out, what exactly is this new ability that Koji speaks of? So some hints that we got to go off of is the statement where Koji says it's a superior version of mind transmission jutsu, and that it's gonna be key in this battle against Mamushi. So based off those two statements right there, we can kind of predict what we're gonna see from Inojin in the upcoming chapters. So to start off, we gotta identify what is the mind transmission technique. The mind transmission technique is an ability that lets one telepathically communicate with people. With intense focus, the user can communicate with multiple people at once, and the targets can also communicate with one another while the technique is still in effect. Like I said earlier, a regular conference call. But the technique is not only limited to just transmitting thoughts, it can also transmit images such as memories, or even strong feelings, like when Naruto was able to show everyone his memories and feelings during the 4th Great Shinobi War. They were actually able to see what he was thinking of, even though he was not the one initiating the jutsu. The more people connected, the more strain it puts on the user, so that's a pretty cool upscale for Ino, who was able to connect with nearly everyone on the battlefield during the war. So to find out what Inojin's new ability is, we gotta take the ability of mind transmission jutsu and upscale it, since Koji said the new jutsu is just a superior version of that. But one thing that I wasn't sure of, or just need more clarification on, is if the story categorizes all of the mind-body techniques under the term mind transmission jutsu. Because one thing that we know is that mind transmission is its own technique. But what we gotta figure out is whether the story is using the term mind transmission to describe all of the mind manipulation abilities like mind-body transfer, mind-body destruction, etc. So in case of that possibility, I prepared multiple techniques that we could see from Inojin that make sense. So one thing that is very important to note when trying to speculate Inojin's new jutsu is the purpose is being used. They're trying to use it to counter Mamushi's ability, the ability to split apart. So Inojin's new jutsu has to be an ability that upsets the mind of multiple of these clones. So basically, one ability that I have that is more or less an upscale of the regular mind transmission technique is the ability to not only connect with multiple people at once, but control them. So think of it as mind transfer jutsu, but what makes this ability different is the number of targets he'll be able to manipulate. Originally, this technique would only be limited to one target, and while you was connected to this target, your body would be in a vulnerable state. So to make this technique worth using, you would always have to have someone guard your body while you're unconscious. So think of this new ability as a way Inojin could control or manipulate the minds of multiple Mamushi clones at once. I shouldn't have to explain why this would be so effective against him. It would make it so you can make the clones fight amongst each other. So basically, making it easier for them to be wiped out by one big attack or something. So the technique revolves around the concept of targeting multiple enemies at the same time. And these aren't new abilities at all, only enhanced versions of already known techniques. Like for example, the mind destruction jutsu. It allows the user to send their chakra into a target's nervous system, giving them full control over the target's body. Unlike the mind transfer technique, the user's consciousness remains within their own body while they use this technique, meaning that it can safely be used even when the user is up against multiple enemies. It is when outnumbered that this technique is most useful too, and the user's opponents can be made to kill each other, because only their bodies are being controlled. The targets remain aware of what their body is doing, though they won't understand why. The users can even control their targets from a distance, allowing the user to sow confusion among the target and their allies. So yes, everything I'm mentioning is already something that was executed multiple times in the series, and is perfect to use against someone like Mamushi because his ability was said to decrease his intelligence the more clones he produces, which would make it easier to manipulate his mind for Inojin. And one potential side note that I want to add, maybe Inojin can find a way to bypass the unconsciousness of mind transfer jutsu. So maybe if he uses the mind transfer jutsu, he'll be able to not only take over the mind of his opponents, but keep his own consciousness in the process, making him the strongest user of the mind-body transmission technique. So basically, this is what I can conclude from these abilities I just named. I'ma say, if we're gonna take the route of a technique more similar to mind destruction jutsu, then Inojin's new jutsu would be a psychological disruption technique, where Inojin invades not only multiple targets' mind, but alters their will, inducing fear, hesitation, or obedience, causing their internal breakdown. Perfect against clone users. And of course, if it's more like mind transmission like Koji says it is, then it'll be a perfected, more advanced version of the mind transmission technique. A technique that allows Inojin to link multiple minds simultaneously, not just possessing one target, but he'll gain the ability to network minds together. He'll be able to control, share thoughts, or even sow chaos among these linked enemies. And since Mamushi's clones are all considered the main body, performing this feat would be extremely easy for Inojin, especially if his intelligence is dropped due to an excessive number of clones. The only hard thing Inojin will have to do is to master this ability. Everything else will be easy. So I'm not gonna lie, all these abilities would more or less give Konoha the advantage they need against Mamushi to win. Whatever ability you think Inojin will need, it has to be able to manipulate multiple minds and manipulate them all at once. I'm like 85% sure the ability Inojin gets will revolve around a hive mindset concept. So anyway, as it pertains to this jutsu, let me know what you think his technique will be. Do you agree with what I said in the video? Or do you think you have an even better idea than the one I presented? Let me know how you feel down below in the comment section. And without further ado, I think that's going to conclude this little analysis video. So before I end off, be sure to show some love by liking the video, comment, subscribe, and turn on the post notifications so you don't miss whenever I upload or go live for chapter spoilers. And like I said in the beginning of the video, go ahead and hype the video too. And until my next one, I'll see you boys and girls later. And I'm out. Peace.